hold on. Can you acknowledge that you're being a massive piece of shit by bringing up what could have been encompassed?
We need to get down to, if you go to the bottom of page 99, the last paragraph, it says, although we acknowledge that these definitions vary and some are arguably broader than others, for the purpose of deciding this case, we need not adopt a single all-encompassing definition of the word insurrection. Rather, it suffices for us to conclude that any definition of insurrection for purposes of Section 3 would encompass a concerted and public use of force, threat by a group of people.
Wait, hold on, wait. I'm sorry, reread. You said, finally, we noted that at oral argument, President Trump's counsel, is that what you started reading at?
No, the paragraph below that. It starts with 184. Although we acknowledge
variants are arguably broader than others, purpose of deciding the case, we need not adopt a single all-encompassing definition of the word insurrection. Rather, it suffices for us to conclude that any definition of insurrection for purposes of Section 3 would encompass a concerted and public use of force or threat of force by a group of people to hinder or prevent the U.S. government from taking the actions necessary to accomplish peaceful transfer of power in this country. Okay.
So what I'm saying is, so now we had two cases, if you count the district case 3. The Colorado case, the New Mexico case, and then the district Colorado case. If it's true that the definition of insurrection is so obvious, why do all three use different definitions?
I'm sorry. Can you read this paragraph 184 and can you tell me what you think they're saying?
Yeah, they're saying there is
read it and then tell me what you think they're saying.
Okay, although we acknowledge that these definitions vary and some are arguably broader than others, for purposes of deciding this case, we need not adopt a single all-encompassing definition of the word insurrection. Rather, it suffices for us to conclude that any definition of insurrection for purposes of Section 3 would encompass a concerted and public use of force or threat of force by a group of people to hinder or prevent the United States.
Okay.
Now, you want me to tell you what that says?
Yeah, what are they saying here?
Okay, what they're saying is there's a lot of legal definitions for the term insurrection, and we're not going to choose to take one of them to define the term insurrection. But we think that all definitions of insurrections would include public use of force by a group of people to hinder the U.S. government, and we think that's what January 6th was.
Or why? For what? Why are they defining it in this way? For
section.
For purposes of deciding this case.
Right.
What they're saying is that, because courts typically try not to decide more than what goes for them, for the purpose of deciding this case, they don't need to adopt they don't have to rule out what the all-encompassing definition of insurrection is.
No.
Right?
I understand that. That's my argument. My argument is that you and other people like you that have said it's so clear what the definition of the term insurrection is. It's clear that this is a standard. It seems to be belied by the fact that we've only had 2 cases in the past 100 years, and they couldn't even agree on what the definition of the word insurrection is.
That's not true. They're not trying to agree. What's happening here is they're saying that Colorado Supreme Court doesn't have to sketch out an all-encompassing definition. The Supreme Court is literally, hold on, just to be clear, the Supreme Court is literally repeating almost exactly what I told you earlier, which was that whatever definition of an insurrection exists, January 6th was clearly an insurrection. That's literally what they're saying here. They're saying, we acknowledge that there are definitions that are, some vary, some are broader than others, some are whatever, but for the purposes of deciding this case, we don't need to figure out like the every single all-encompassing definition of the word insurrection. Rather, it's good enough to say that, at least for purposes of Section 3, it encompasses a concerted and public use of force or threat of force by a group of people to hinder or prevent the U.S. government from taking the actions necessary to accomplish a peaceful transfer of power in this country. That basically maps onto the 4 points that I'm using. You understand that, right?
Right. So you just repeated what I told you at the outset that this said, that they chose specifically not to adapt a definition of the term insurrection and just said, we think any definition of the term insurrection would encompass what happened on January 6th. So congratulations, you got to exactly where I said. The point of me bringing this up was they haven't charged these sorts of things for over 100 years.
None of that. Why do you keep...
Let me finish.
You have no idea. No. I'm not going to let you keep saying the same thing about charging a crime when you've already agreed it's a bad argument. You agree that a riot can happen? Hold on. Do you agree that a riot can happen without somebody being charged with a riot?
Yes.
Do you agree that an arson can happen without somebody being charged with arson?
Yes.
Do you agree that an insurrection can happen without somebody being charged with insurrection?
Yes.
Then why do you keep saying they haven't charged an individual with insurrection?
Because the fact that we could see that your definition and some of these definitions as well would have meant there were thousands of insurrections over the past 100 years. It beggars belief to say that of all those thousands of insurrections, they never even had one court case. Not even one.
You can't give me a single example.
Sure. Vietnam War protest.
Okay, which one?
Dozens. Any that had any
Give me one of them, Rob. That's how legal questions work. You have to give me one protest.
Okay, so any protest. I don't have the fucking dates in front of me. Okay, how about we do this?
You
how about
have
we do
no
this?
idea,
I can
Rob,
give you.
You're just trying to give me a legal example, and you don't know the facts of any of the cases.
That's
You're not
not
prepared
true.
to discuss
That's
this.
not
Why
true.
would you bring this as an example if you don't even know?
Not true. That's not true. What you're asking me to be like, June 17th, 1968, exactly at the GPS location of longitude 117.13.
Do you think that's the same as me asking? Can you give me one example of a protest?
Let me ask you this, Destiny. Are you aware of were there Vietnam protests where there was violence?
I'm not aware of there being people that were brought together to all go and I don't know, to...
What do you think they were doing?
What do
you think every Vietnam protest...
prevent Congress from voting on? I'm not sure. I'm not aware of any of those. No, I don't know any of those.
It doesn't matter. It wasn't a matter. It was they were against the executive and legislative policies that entered us into the Vietnam War.
You're allowed to protest. Yes.
Right. And if they engaged in violence while they're at the protest, that's a fucking insurrection. It meets all four criteria.
Only if they thought that through that violence they could circumvent or compel or change or coerce lawmakers into changing a law.
What do you think? What do you think
that might have happened, Rob? I'm telling you.
What do you think they were doing?
Give me an example.
What do you think they were doing when they were there protesting? They were trying to put pressure on Congress to pull out of Vietnam. Yes?
You're allowed to protest.
That's right. Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And yet, according to your definition, that fits all four criteria. All four criteria.
Rob, you haven't given me anything that fits all four criteria.
A Vietnam protest.
Okay, which one? Name one.
We're speaking in the abstract here. Then I guess
no,
we'll say
you can't speak in the abstract about a particular thing like this.
I absolutely can, right? Because what I could do is we'll just say that it was a hypothetical. And if you want to make the argument, nope, there were no Vietnam protests where violence ever broke out. If you want to make that argument, that's fine. You're absolutely right that I can't tell you. In Portland in 1966, on March 13th, starting at 8:03, a bunch of protesters showed up.
You're making it sound like this is so ridiculous to ask you for a... Hold on. Can you acknowledge that you're being a massive piece of shit by bringing up what could have encompassed thousands of protests and then concluding that I have to accept that there was an insurrection by my definition here when you don't know of a single example, a single specific example? You understand that you're being in insanely bad faith there, right?
It's not bad faith. Everyone's aware of the fact that we've seen video of it, of Vietnam protests that got a hand. You had organizations like the Black Panthers that were routinely there. There were we've seen the video, we've seen the tape. I don't have this. There's so much.
Then do you want to? Can we look one up and you can find me one? You're telling me there's a video footage of the Black Panthers saying we're going to gather at this particular place and engage in violent action so we can get these congressmen to change their mind or some shit. You can show me, because by the way, if you can show me something like that, I'd probably say like, oh, this kind of looks like an insurrection.
Notice how you change it. Where does any of that entail? Where the hell does any of that entail what your definition? All your definition says, let me remind you of what it doesn't say, we're going to engage in violence so that we can change. None of that's necessary. You were very clear. It's
by force or intimidation.
Let me finish. An assemblage of persons, well, almost any Vietnam protest would be that, acting to prevent the execution of one or more federal laws, preventing the lawful declaration of war in Vietnam for a public purpose, clearly a public purpose, and the only thing that you would quibble about is through the use of violence, force, or intimidation. Well, if they were there armed or if they were there to clash with police, you've already said, well, that's clear cut. If they were clashing with them, especially if they had any sort of weapons, well, that's proof.
Show me. Okay? I never said it was just weapons, but show me. Give me one, and we can look at it. We can analyze it.
You understand you're being insanely bad faith by refusing to acknowledge that there were clearly Vietnam protests that got violent and demanding a specific date for them.
I don't know, Rob. The fact that you can't name one shows that it's obviously not as obvious as you seem to believe. I don't know what the extent was of violence that occurred during Vietnam protests to try to prevent people from voting for war. I don't know that. I don't know the answer. And you clearly don't either, because you can't think of a single fucking example. And you're trying to pretend that me asking for just one example of this, or you even saying, well, hold on, let me go and look. I know that there were protests around here at this time, whatever. You acting like it's insane for me not to say is evidence of bad faith in and of itself. It's not insane for me when I'm giving you a particular definition, and when we're talking about a particular event like January 6th, it's not insane and when we've gone through particular court cases, it's not insane for me to ask for, okay, give me one example of one of these marches.
Sure.